All right, happy Monday. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. And it was a busy day at the White House today, where First Lady Melania Trump welcomed the White House Christmas tree. Now, the tree was chosen from Corin's Tree Farms in Sydney, Michigan. They carted it all the way out there. Tomorrow, though, the president will, and the First Lady will, celebrate the 78th turkey pardoning at the White House, where the president will choose either to pardon gobble or waddle. Now, rumor also has it that Trump's going to be challenging all previous turkey auto pen pardons. Also today, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy weighed in on the upcoming holiday travel season in light of the recent government shutdown.
This is going to be the busiest Thanksgiving that we have on record. We anticipate there's going to be solid staffing in our towers and TRACONs and centers throughout the airspace. And that's different than what we had over the shutdown.
Hey, I got that same tie. All right, get ready for a busy week of travel, folks. And the DOJ indictments of James Comey and Letitia James were thrown out by a federal judge today, meaning that the case against Comey is likely done. There's a very slim possibility of an appeal. But how could the Justice Department screw this one up so bad? We're going to have more on that in just a few minutes. But first, are Democrats using the Army PSYOPs manual to undermine Trump? Let's do this. Department of War is considering the possibility of recalling Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly, and maybe others back to active duty in accordance with 10 U.S. Code 688 to stand trial. Issuing a statement today reading, the Department of War reminds all individuals that military retirees remain subject to the UCMJ, that's the Uniform Code of Military Justice, for applicable offenses, prohibit actions intended to interfere with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline of the armed forces. And they can do this. They've done it before. Like I told you last week, the fallout of this gets people killed. Stuff like this gets people killed. It creates stupid rules of engagement, some of which killed my friends personally, because they want to play political grandstand games with no intention of ever backing the soldier up when he does the bidding that they subtly encouraged. Want to know why the Pentagon is taking this so seriously? Because these senators and congressmen are not only blurring the lines of good order and discipline, but somebody over there must have woken up one day and realized, hey, these Democrats are literally using the PSYOPs training from the Army handbook, especially Senator Slotkin from the CIA. You ever heard of the Army Field Manual 305.301? Psychological Operations, Process, Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures, TTPs. What the heck is that, you ask? Yes. This is something we do in the military and OGAs. Those are other government agencies, CIA, FBI, DA, all those people. It's how we overthrow other governments without a shot fired. Now, the case of space race is a perfect example of this. You going to hardcore on this in the media, getting the Soviets to bankrupt themselves to try to maintain their own version of perceived superiority. But I know this game really well. The SEAL teams, we have our own division that does specifically this. I participated in it. We've been doing this all over the Middle East, North Africa, and even Eastern Europe, that we're willing to admit right now, running seemingly benign influence campaigns that sway the target sentiment away from supporting one thing into another. And this is exactly what those 6 Democrats are doing with this illegal order video they put out. It's called interpretive maximalism. You ever heard of it? It takes an opponent's words or actions and stretches them into a manufactured existential threat that never actually occurred. It pushes, in this case, moderate Republicans to want to condemn their own party for fear of being cast out as extreme. Basically, it causes pearl clutching. They use this, gasp. Oh, I can't believe Trump said that. Mark Kelly appears to adopt a position of victim or moral heroism while casting the opponent, who's Trump, as an authoritarian and dangerous. Here, from Mark Kelly's own fundraising statement today. If this is meant to intimidate me or other members of Congress from doing our jobs and holding this administration accountable, it won't work. I've given too much to this country to be silenced by bullies who care more about their own power than protecting the Constitution. He plays hero. Oh, I'm standing for the Constitution and being attacked for it. Not really. But implying that if you don't stand with Mark Kelly, that you are somehow against the Constitution. Implying that what Trump might do is unconstitutional, and therefore the military should believe his orders are unlawful and potentially disobey them. When in fact it's Mark Kelly and others trying to get the military to disobey orders without specifics. Democrats have been saying his orders actually are illegal for years without specifics, even though they're not. And by saying it as elected officials, implying that they stand on the moral high ground and that there's more to gain from taking their side. Here, again, from the Army PSYOPs manual itself, check this out. The higher perceived reward and the lower perceived risks, the more likely the behavior will occur. You see, the Nuremberg trials have been planted all over the media recently. Even, you can see, the Military Times. Most notably, the just following orders of the Nazis was not a viable defense. This is all not by accident, folks. This is carefully coordinated, further putting that bug into young soldiers' heads to defy Trump's orders for fear that one day they may be on trial. But something that destroys a PSYOP, because again, a PSYOP is literally reinterpreting reality through change behavior, basically providing misinformation. Where have we heard that before? Notice how they never give specifics, even when asked, because they don't have any.
So let's talk right now. Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal.
Folks, don't doubt me on this one. I literally did this in other countries. But this is just the current lever being pulled. They've been prepping this for 10 years. They've been trying to cast Donald Trump as crazy, unconstitutional, whatever else, trying to create the vulnerability to crack his support, and none of it's true. Here from the manual, quote, a vulnerability is critical when its exploitation will significantly influence the threat's ability, the threat being Trump, ability to conduct, support, or operations. Operations in this case meaning carefully convinced young service members that striking a drug boat in international waters might be an illegal order without saying it, because it's not. Oh, Carl, the military and the CIA can't actually be using a PSYOPs campaign on the American people. You bet they can. You ever heard of the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948? This actually prohibited the U.S. government from disseminating government-funded propaganda or psychological operations materials on American citizens. Well, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, which was incorporated into the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013, signed by President then Barack Obama, changed that. Specifically, Section 1078. Got the receipts, folks. The primary goal was to remove limits to the United States government's ability to counter foreign propaganda. This basically showed the government the ability to influence U.S. public opinion. I mean, don't even get me started on the Patriot Act and how it allowed it to spy on all Americans, but whatever. So think about this. If your opinion has gone negative of Trump, especially in the last few weeks, folks, you are likely a victim of a massive PSYOPs. Trump hasn't changed in the last 3 weeks. Your opinion might have because of the PSYOPs. Funneled through all these liberal medias because they're the easiest to convince to toe this line because they hate Donald Trump. That's their vulnerability that I just told you about to exploit by people like these 6 Democrats. They did this with Russian collusion. Hillary Clinton had them open an investigation to legitimize just the claim of it. After $50 million, they found nothing. They knew there never was anything. That wasn't the point. The point was to convince half the country before an election. It was, though. Hunter Biden's laptop with the 51 former officials saying that it's Russian disinformation. With the Trump very fine people comment, where they literally tried to erase the other half of his sentence that said, quote, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis, they should be condemned totally. COVID, oh, and the power grab that followed that as a response, that was a test to see how far they could go and what they could get away with. These are all PSYOPs on the American people, straight out, literally verbatim, out of the Army Field Manual. This illegal order campaign that they're running, no different. That is why they need to recall these people to active duty and court-martial them for sedition. Because the U.S. government right now, via those 6 Democrats, is treating American citizens like our own enemy combatants. A man who's taken part in these types of campaigns, former CIA covert operations officer Mike Baker. Big news, man. It's right out of the manual.
Yeah, I tell you, this is really just the most visual. I mean, this display by the senators, this is just the most visual example of what you're talking about, right? I mean, there's been efforts, obviously, by media collusion, if you want to call it that, to change the hearts and minds of American voters. You see it every time that the memo goes out and suddenly Democrat politicians are all spewing the same line, right? And that's, their understanding of the American public, their belief is that, the American public is generally pretty stupid. And so they're going to buy this. But the most egregious part of this, honestly, Carl, from my perspective, is that it's the same thing that they always do with Trump, right? It's just, as long as you're fighting Trump, you can say anything because, oh my God, who knows what he might do, right? And so that opens up the ability for the Democrat real base, the hard left, to say, well, you're right. I've got to be righteous and agree with this, even if there's no, as Senator Slotkin said, there's no illegal orders here.
Yeah,
Mike,
this is not Minority Report. We're not guilty of pre-crimes here. And I want to get to this because even senators and congressmen like Rand Paul, not immune from this. I mean, it's literally working on Rand Paul. Roll this.
Everybody knows that the president is famous for his unfiltered social media. But if you take at face value the idea that calling your opponents traitors and then specifically saying that it warrants the death penalty is reckless, inappropriate, irresponsible. There are a number of other ways to describe it, but it's not something that is helping the country heal wounds. I think it stirs things up, and really, I think we can do better.
He said specifically calls for the death. Trump never he shared some no-names post. He never specifically called for it. And the fact that Rand Paul, of all people, is talking about Trump bringing it down, it's working on him.
No, absolutely. Nobody's really immune to this. As you know, look, a really well thought out, orchestrated psyop can be extremely effective, even with a sophisticated audience. And so I go back to the same thing. Mark Kelly, he's counting on the fact that he's sort of armored himself with his servants, right? And as you pointed out, you can't insult me for suggesting that perhaps at some point down the road, who knows when, maybe Trump issues an order that you shouldn't follow.
Yeah.
And now you can't say anything about that because, well, look, Mark Kelly served his country. So what are you supposed to do? Or at least Slotkin worked as an analyst for the agency for 5 years. What should you say?
Yeah. They did John McCain did the same thing. But I will say, Mike, I believe myself to be virtually immune from propaganda. I stood hard and never got vaccinated during the whole COVID thing. So, Mike Baker.
Well, if you're a skeptic, well, I'm not calling you a skeptical cynic, but you've been around long enough, and once you've seen enough crap out there, once you understand that the world works in a certain way, not how you'd hope it to work, right? Then suddenly you're much more skeptical and cynical. And if I could end with this, that's what the American people need to understand. They are the only real line of defense against things like this. You have to question what you see, question what you read, question what you hear. You have to understand what the source of it is. You have to put it in context. The problem is that takes time and it's difficult and everybody's busy.
Yep. And always ask, how did we get COVID from a guy eating a bat in a wet market? Never added up. Mike Baker, pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Another massive story coming out, this one from the legal world, where a federal judge dismissed the cases of both former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Now, the judge concluding that Lindsay Halligan, they didn't even rule on the merits of the case. They ruled on Lindsay Halligan, the interim U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, was illegally appointed to her position because the judge dismissed both indictments, though, without prejudice. This means another attorney can bring those charges against James, but Comey is almost positively off the hook altogether. Why? Well, because the statute of limitations for his case, which allegedly him lying to Congress, expired on September 30th. This should have been a layup for the Justice Department. They knew when the Comey statute of limitations expired, yet they waited till September 22nd, 8 days before, to appoint Halligan to the position, which 3 days later she brought an indictment. This was done so sloppily that the only two things that make sense to me is, one, either Pam Bondi is not competent enough to do that, or two, there was like a wink, wink, nod, nod deal behind the scenes with Comey. Those are the only two outcomes here. That he would be charged and then he would keep Trump supporters happy. Then after the statute of limitations ran out, they'd be like, oh, man, sorry. And everything gets tossed out and the deep state survives. Newsmax legal analyst and former U.S. Attorney Jay Town. Jay, is there an appeal on Comey or is it dead?
So let me give you hope, Carl, because
hope.
I came across this today while I was reading the opinion, which is, an opinion that is hashed with partisan politics that you would expect out of a, octogenarian Clinton appointee, which is what Judge Curry is. But 18 U.S.C. 3288, here's the hope. So if you indict someone and then the statute of limitations otherwise runs during that indictment period after the indictment, and then the indictment is dismissed, the law provides us a 6-month period of time to bring that indictment back. So it actually acts as a tolling feature of the statute of limitations. So Comey did not get an acquittal today.
Yeah.
He got a continuance, and that's it. And Tish James, her charges are well within the statute of limitations.
That was going to be my next question. So Tish James is, has been indicted for something completely different, the same as what we may see from Adam Schiff and maybe even Eric Swalwell. How fast can this get turned around? Does it have to be reappointed, reindicted, or can they just keep going?
So it has to be reindicted. So it has to be presented to another grand jury entirely. But because we have that 6-month period of time, and this was a decision about 18 U.S.C. 546, or 28 U.S.C. 546, which is a presentment or appointments vacancy act type case. They can try to get that appeal. I mean, 546 is a mess. The judge, this was all a technicality that 120 days of interim appointment is all any administration gets. Well, that's just nonsense. The statute doesn't say that. It doesn't say that only the courts. It uses the word may, not shall or must. And so not only the courts can appoint, obviously someone else must have the authority if it's may. This really needs to be cleaned up by Congress, but also by the courts.
Yeah.
But we have 6 months to bring these indictments back before a new grand jury and do it properly.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe Todd Blanche needs to go down there and make sure it's done so that it's uncontested about the appointment authority of the AG.
Or, do it himself. I mean, that's what he's getting paid for. Jay Town, pleasure, my man.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, talk soon. All right, coming up, Dearborn isn't even trying to hide this Muslim takeover anymore. We're going to show you that later in the show. But first, Eric Swalwell wants Californians to be able to vote by phone. Yeah, right. Next.
Donald Trump's second presidency is changing America. Now you need to watch Rob Schmitt tonight on President Trump's next big move. Then tune into Rob Finnerty taking on Trump's critics. President Trump says he watches Newsmax. You should too. Download our Newsmax app to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax. Be one.
Hi, Leslie, the deal-loving llama here. I just got a great deal on new flooring. Lumber Liquidators has the top brands of flooring from Dream Home Laminate to Bellawood Exotics with the best warranties and at incredible prices, up to 60% less than others. Visit your local store or lumberliquidators.com. Worth a drive.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
What kind of gift can $29 get you these days? It could send someone to their ancestral village and give them a taste of their heritage, from mom's side and dad's side. That's a big gift for a small price.
It's the holiday season on Solitaire Grand Harvest, and now you have a chance to win a premium baking kit. Enjoy festive solitaire adventures with fun challenges. Step into Sonny's kitchen. He's already cooking up a feast and looking for a co-chef. Tastes like a win to me. Join the millions already enjoying exciting levels and mini games. Download Solitaire Grand Harvest for free now and get a chance to win a holiday baking kit. New winner every week.
You know the best way to bring your inflation rate down? Move from a blue state to a red state. Blue state inflation is 0.5% higher, and that is because they don't deregulate, they keep prices up, energy is higher.
Look, Besson isn't wrong here. Blue state inflation is higher, and the liberal counter to that is to say, oh, well, the pay is 10 to 25% higher. And also they cover 50% of the economy coming out of the top 10 major cities in blue states. Ironically, states that people are also fleeing, but here's the other thing. It costs you 100% more to live there, so it's actually a net loss. Look at this. The states with the highest personal debt are mostly blue states. California, Washington, Colorado, New York, Massachusetts, now Virginia after the last election. That's super blue. New Jersey, Hawaii, Maryland. And the lowest? Mississippi, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Arkansas, red states. The District of Columbia being the highest overall and has an average credit card debt of almost $5,500 and an average personal debt of $103,000. So you might be able to make more in a blue city, according to the liberals, or in a blue state, but your inflation rate is much higher, and it costs you 4 times as much as the pay increase to live there. Ashley Brasfield, reporter of the Daily Call, and Wendy Bell, host of Wendy Bell Common Sense. Wendy, I'd love some common sense to check this one out.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. Everything they want to talk about fiscally is absurd. All of the rules, the regulations, the stagnation. I live in Pittsburgh. I call Pennsylvania the land before time for a reason. You keep voting in the same lousy people who keep doing the same lousy things. And most of it is spend money like drunken sailors and pretend that they care about everything that we care about. And so what you see is an exodus. I mean, we watched this in Minnesota last year. You get 48,000 people moving out of Minnesota, not because they don't like the Somalians per se, but because it's not even affordable. So the whole thing is preposterous. And if California thinks any of this is going to change, or any other blue state, it's unfortunate, you know, you're wrong.
$6 gas, though. Enjoy it.
Love it.
Yeah, and speaking of voting, like people voting these people in, their policies are so bad that they want to loosen the restrictions. Look at what Eric Swalwell wants to do. Roll it.
I want us to be able to vote by phone. I think every Californian vote by phone. Yeah, if we can do our taxes, do our make our healthcare appointments, make essentially do your banking online, you should be able to vote by phone. Make it safe, make it secure, but it's actually already happening all over the United States.
Not even no, Ashley, but hell no. Even CNN thinks that's insane. Ashley, why do I have to get a background? Like, can I mail a gun to my house now? I mean, like, why do I have to get a background check for one right, but not another one?
Yeah, it's insane. I think him and Gavin Newsom have really one thing in common, and they prioritize Chinese nationals and illegal immigrants in this case. And that's exactly what this does. And, he characterizes, he goes and talks about Georgia, which I'm from, and he uses the Stacey Abrams argument, that, they don't have accessibility, specifically Africans Americans and illegal immigrants. Well, I wonder why. Because they're illegal immigrants, and they shouldn't be able to vote in a state like California. Prioritize Californians and clean up the streets, protect women, prioritize other things that, are fundamental rights that, people should be able to have. And really, in-person voting, why don't you just allow people to take the day off and go vote? That's the easier common sense method.
Vote on election day, not election month or mail in, whatever. All right. Afton Bain, the Dem running for special election seat, representing Tennessee, by the way, currently under fire for saying she actually hates the district that she's from in Nashville, thinks she wants to represent this is unbelievable. Just roll this clip. It's unbelievable.
I've been heavily involved with the Nashville mayoral race because I hate the city. I hate the bachelorettes. I hate the pedal taverns. I hate country music. I hate all of the things that make Nashville, apparently, an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it.
Wendy, you hate the district? Go back to North Korea. I don't know.
It's ridiculous, but the only thing that's more ridiculous than that is this is how in your face these people are about not believing in American exceptionalism, not believing in opportunity, not believing in all of the things that we care about. Look, as a mom, I care about giving my kids the opportunity to do what I've done. Women like that, besides being a wacko, right? She's telling you what she's doing, and she'll probably win until enough people wake up and say, oh, hell no.
Yeah, Ashley, I want to give you the last 15 seconds here. This is insane.
It is insane. And, you know, what's funny here is the Democrats are actually funding the independent candidate over her. They funded polling showing her down 8 points in this case. And it's being funded by places like 1630 Group and Your Community PAC, which has a location in Delaware as their address. So, you know, this is the factor. You know, she's not a representative of West Tennessee.
Yep.
She's from East Tennessee. She doesn't represent that state at all.
Yeah, good riddance, lady. All right, Ashley, Wendy, we appreciate it very much. All right, coming up, the first token trans NFL cheerleader that I was not keen to watch has been fired, and now he's saying, wait for it, it's because he's trans. We got that nonsense next.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us, we're different. We report the real news, no spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years, and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details, and make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
The sweet sound of Monday morning. Somehow you're both wired and wiped out at the same time. Meet Super Calm from Nello, a simple mix to help support healthy cortisol levels and bring you back into balance. Super Calm from Nello.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
Hey, remember this great moment from Mamdani's Oval Office visit on Friday?
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say
okay.
yes.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Well, now all of a sudden, Mamdani found his courage to re-insult Trump because he's not standing next to him in the Oval Office.
Do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do?
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement, about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
Notice how he wouldn't say the word fascist because he didn't want to give everybody the ability to clip it. I mean, look, what a coward. I guess it makes sense to come from a guy whose dad called the Holocaust survivors today's perpetrators in a 2002 lecture. Some family they got there. Morgonn McMichael, TP USA contributor, and Luke Ball, political strategist and CEO of Compass Strategies. Luke, this guy is all over the place. I think he did damage to himself with that Oval Office visit, personally.
He did, and he understands that he can't govern New York without Donald Trump, without cooperation with the federal government. And I've watched the president over the last few years and in the first administration interact with dictators on the world stage. And he was basically setting the table with them and setting the premises like, hey, let's have a cordial conversation at the beginning, but then define exactly how we're going to start an America First agenda, how we're going to operate things, because he's the art of the deal president. I think that's what happened with the Mamdani meeting. He was like, look, let's start with a clean slate, but this is how things are going to go. And you saw Mamdani head right off and start criticizing the president afterwards.
Yep. All right. So, Morgan, this one I've been wanting to get to all day. The trans cheerleader that the NFL hired because he was trans is now crying that he was fired, allegedly, because he was trans. Just listen to this.
I'm not trying to be rude, disrespectful, or nothing. I was cut.
Oh, my God.
Because I'm trans.
What? Hold on. Go ahead.
I was cut because I'm trans, honey.
So you can be hired for something, but you can't be fired for the same thing.
Right. I mean, this is the problem with all of the different DEI policies that are not just infecting the NFL, but honestly, hundreds of corporations across America and beyond. You know, maybe he was fired because he was trans, maybe not, but we've seen plenty.
Maybe he was
NFL
fired because he's a dude.
I was
just
gonna say,
saying.
maybe it's because he was a guy and the ratings are going in the tank because none of the fans want to watch male cheerleaders. It is a very competitive, entertaining sport, and I don't know anyone that wants to watch male cheerleaders on the sidelines, especially the ones that are pretending to be women.
No, the ones that are like, you know, throwing chicks like 40 feet in the air, but not males with pom-poms. That's not my...
100%.
Yeah. All right, two of the wonderful ladies from The View, Luke, Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin, had a few predictions about the first female president on their podcast. Roll this.
But just that the idea that the country is getting more comfortable with women leaders. Or
Maybe
do you think
a
there's
woman,
a difference
but not a
between...
black woman.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, not in my lifetime.
I think maybe a conservative woman would win faster.
A lot of
than
people
a
think
liberal.
that. A lot of people think
It's
a conservative woman might win first.
A white conservative woman, yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Possible. But there's a lot of misogyny in this country as well, and sexism.
Maybe that has nothing to do with misogyny, Luke, but maybe it has everything to do with the fact that 45% of liberal women, have poor mental health. 51% of conservatives have excellent mental health. This is not according to me. This is according to, obviously it's cited right there at the bottom. Silver Bulletin study. Think about that, Luke.
First, Carl, I think that male cheerleader probably got fired because he had trouble doing the splits during the cheerleading routine. And secondly, with respect to the ladies on The View, they are not focused on policies, things that the American people actually care about, things the American people elect candidates to go out there and do and execute. They're focused on the demographics and the identity politics, which fail every single time.
Mm-hmm.
They're still having this conversation even after the abysmal loss that Kamala Harris had.
Yeah. Morgan, here's another one that's just like goes with the trans football thing. An AI teddy bear marketed to children was pulled from sale because it was explaining sex positions to children.
This is a very frightening story because it really begs the question of how far are we going to let AI go, especially when it's affecting the next generation and in such sexually explicit ways. I honestly think that AI is starting to do more harm than good to our society. I actually saw a video today of a little boy, 3 years old, using ChatGPT on an iPad. Why does a 3-year-old need to be typing anything in ChatGPT? And this teddy bear is using OpenAI platforms. It's incredibly dangerous to society.
Yeah, I mean, mean, my kids, it's controlled when they do get a device, and I think more parents should do that. Morgonn McMichael, Luke Bowl, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, we've been warning you about Dearborn, Michigan basically every week, but it keeps getting worse. They're not even trying to hide their agenda anymore. The mayor just launched a real program that shows the motive. Next.
Hi, I'm Wade Allen Root, the national TV and radio host known as the MAGA warrior and the capitalist evangelist. This presidency is ushering in the golden age of prosperity, and it's all built around making America the energy capital of the world. Enter Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery. It's estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, with a management forecast projecting the first 25 wells alone to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas. This is how we power the AI future of America, with clean natural gas. Headed by oil and gas legend Mark Bruner, whose previous public companies delivered spectacular returns for investors. At their peaks, Pedico Energy grew about 100 to 1 for investors. Ultra Petroleum grew about 1,000 to 1 for investors. To learn more about Lost Soldier Oil and Gas, scan the QR code on the screen or go to lostsoldier.com. That's lostsoldier.com.
Nearly home. Who done it?
We're looking for a house closer to everything, but we don't know where to start.
Find it with Realtor.com. With Real Commute, it's easy to find a home closer to what's ever close to your heart. Do y'all recycle? Realtor.com.
Do you have a yo-yo smile? Sometimes yellow, sometimes white. It's a constant battle between everyday stains and whitening treatments. Until now, get Smile Actives, the daily teeth whitening breakthrough that gives you a more youthful smile and helps you keep it.
At 43 years old, I don't mess around with products that waste my time. Smile Actives is easy, and it works. No gloopy trays, no messy strips. Just add a little bit on top of your toothpaste when you brush your teeth. And ta-da, white teeth.
Just add Smile Actives to your favorite toothpaste and watch the magic happen. Our patented Polyclean microfoam lifts away deep stains for a dramatically younger and whiter smile.
You have a choice. You can have those yellow teeth and just be old Nana or Pop-Pop, or you can be smiling and dazzling and full of confidence. I love my white teeth.
Scan, click, or call for your whitest smile yet. And if you order right now, we'll double your whitening free. Get an extra Smile Actives as our free gift to you, but only while supplies last.
I drink coffee every day. I started noticing that my teeth were not as bright as I'd like them to be, a little dingy, but Smile Active, it works. Got your boy gleaming.
100% of users saw whiter teeth. Smile Actives lifts away even the toughest stains from coffee, wine, and food, gently restoring your bright, youthful smile. Plus, it's safe for veneers, crowns, and dentures.
It's really a no-brainer if you want to whiten your teeth.
Clinically shown to brighten your teeth 5 shades whiter in just 7 days.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Act now. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll double your order free. But hurry, this deal won't last. Smile Actives is guaranteed to work. Whiten your teeth or get your money back. No questions asked. Don't wait. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. That's free shipping, a free extra bottle. That's an incredible 58% savings. Scan the code, go to smileactives.com or call to get your beautiful whiter smile now.
Look, it's like a drumbeat here. We've been warning you about Dearborn, Michigan, the radical Muslims taking over, going all over the place. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Now they're advertising money for it.
If you had a baby as of November 1 or are currently pregnant, you are eligible for up to $4,500. I would just have 3 kids.
Dearborn RX Kids is finally here. We worked for this program for over 2 years, and if you're pregnant now, had a baby after November 1st, you're eligible.
Dearborn produces more babies per capita than any other city in Michigan, roughly 1,700 babies, which is why it's important that this program is live and well right here in the city of Dearborn.
They say it themselves. Dearborn produces the most babies per capita than any other city in Michigan. Why do we think that is? They're using our tax dollars to outbreed us. Michael Savage, host of Savage Nation, sir. Crazy.
This language culture, yeah. Well, from Dearborn to Tearborn, we saw this coming. These people have no qualms, open, like you said, about taking over not only a city but a nation. And let me say something else. Where's that $4,500 coming from? Does anyone know where the money's coming from? Is it from a Gulf state? Is it from the tax base? Is it from the Soros Foundation? We all know what they're doing. They're absolutely taking over a city as a model for taking over a state, as a model for taking over a nation, at the same time that the U.S. birth rate amongst American women is below the death rate, especially amongst white women. You know, the saddest thing I see in the world today is white women, nice-looking white women pushing a carriage, and I look in the carriage, and I see a dog.
Horrible.
Or I see a cat.
I'm thinking of somebody I know who does this.
And I say to myself, this is what the saying means when it says going to the dogs. It was written a long time ago. Our whole civilization is going to the dogs. It's a product of 50 years of brainwashing.
It's crazy.
Girls just want to have fun. If it feels good, do it. Why not do it in the road, etc. I'll stop right there.
Yeah, but in another saying, an Afghan migrant in the UK, where I know you're banned from, thank God, pled guilty to raping a 12-year-old girl, and he faces further rape abduction charges. Him and his co-conspirator both facing charges relating to the kidnapping of this 12-year-old earlier this year. These guilty pleas triggered local anti-migration protests in the UK. And look, these people are done with this, man.
Well, they're done with it. But Keith Starmer, who President Trump sadly called a fine man the other day, I almost fell off my chair. I mean, I know he's the president. He's got to get along with other world leaders, but there's a limit to it. Starmer is the worst nightmare that Britain has ever seen. In fact, you saw the picture 2 weeks ago of a 101-year-old World War II veteran in tears over all the war memorials and graves and what they died for. He said they died for nothing. When he sees the invasion of his own nation. And here's a nation where I'm sorry to say, it's not about me, I understand that. I was a canary in the coal mine in 1998 when they banned me from entering the United Kingdom for things I said and didn't say that I allegedly said. And by the way, some of the things I said will turn out to be, unfortunately, 100% true. And I was trying to warn the West of what was coming. And for that, I'm not allowed to go to Britain, and I can't get the fine cuisine nor the dental care that I really need. That's the truth.
All right, this is another one. Lastly, leave it to the New York Times. Literally everything is a sob story for a migrant. This guy literally committed identity theft on another dude, and they're saying, oh, well, they're both victims and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the normal guy just got his identity stolen. Now he's going to pay thousands of dollars in fines.
Well, that's like equating the animal on the subway car who slashed that beautiful girl's throat. Are we to say he's a victim and he fell through the cracks?
He was on such a hard life.
The judges who let him out need to be punished. I've said this for 30 years. If a surgeon cuts the wrong blood vessel and causes death, the surgeon loses his license.
Correct.
Why shouldn't a judge who releases killers on the street who then kill again not be put in prison for their, quote, mistake? They didn't make a mistake. They want to cause mayhem, Carl, as you know. This is part of their plan. It's not sympathy for the devil. It's something much more demonic than that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Michael Savage, we appreciate you joining us tonight, sir.
Oh, thanks for letting me vent. I feel so much better.
Good. I'm glad your blood pressure is up. We'll see you next week. All right, be sure to check out Savage Nation right here on Newsmax Sundays at 8 p.m. President Trump taking aim at the FCC over the weekend, supporting Newsmax and conservative media. The president taking to Truth Social, reposting a Newsmax article about the FCC's plan to lift TV network ownership caps. The FCC plans would allow networks to purchase more local stations in local markets around the country. Trump saying, quote, if this would also allow the radical left networks to enlarge, I would not be happy. ABC and NBC in particular are a disaster, a virtual arm of the Democrat Party. They should be viewed as an illegal campaign to the radical left. No expansion of the fake news networks. If anything, make them smaller. Newsmax has been reporting on this plan of the FEC is considering. Our own Newsmax CEO Chris Ruddy saying lifting these caps would be a disaster for conservatives, and I agree. Sounds like the president may be standing with Newsmax on this one. I like it. Please call your congressmen and senators. Encourage them to support President Trump in opposition to the FCC plans to lift the caps. Tell them also you oppose Nexstar's merger with Tenga, which would create the largest TV station group in the nation that would reach 80% of America and be in violation, we believe, of federal law. Call your lawmaker today. The number on the screen, 202-224-3121. Coming up, according to Marco Rubio and peace talks in Geneva today about Ukraine. We're very productive. Interesting. Next.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
Meet Andrew from the Zebra. Andrew lives and breathes insurance. Andrew stays up all night watching the Zebra find people's savings. You might think nobody could love insurance as much as Andrew, but at the Zebra, everybody's really into savings. The Zebra monitors your insurance and informs you of savings the moment we find it. So you never have to second-guess your policy or your price. Nobody does insurance like the Zebra. Find out how much you can save today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
This November, the best teams in college basketball take the stage in Vegas for the Geico Players Era Championship. Over 4 days, the brightest stars and coaches in the country collide. He's got it! Oh my! You dream of moments like that. Geico Players Era Championship begins today on TNT, True TV, and stream on HBO Max.
Not again.
Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
Hey, remember I talked about PSYOPs and the Smith-Munda Act? This was the intent of the 2012 update to the NDAA to counter foreign propaganda. But since they screwed it up, thankfully, Elon's got our back. X just introduced a new transparency feature that reveals the location of users' accounts. And this information was revealing, like a whole lot. House Intel Chief Rick Crawford is warning that foreign actors are even conspiring with Americans to sow discord, saying, quote, we need to be in a position to intercept those kinds of things and protect our citizens here at home. Brent Sadler, former Pentagon official, and Victoria Coates, former Deputy National Security Advisor. Okay, Victoria, I mean, like, we kind of warned this, and now some of these, Republicans against Trump are from, like, Sudan.
This is amazing, Carl. And my favorite is that Greta Thunberg has suddenly just hidden her location altogether. So we don't know where she's been coming from. Could be anywhere. I mean, and we're seeing a lot of these anti-Israel accounts coming from places like Turkey, Egypt. But
there's anti-American accounts in Israel, too.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is there are equal opportunity offenders to go around. But what Elon has done is opened up, this account, if you will, and revealed that people are not what they seem on X. Now, we might have been able to guess that 2 days ago, but now we know it.
Yeah. I'm going to actually do a VPN so it looks like all my posts are in Great Britain so they can try to come arrest me for it, and then I can laugh at them. All right, so Brent, the other thing is this is Ukraine, big. After talks in Geneva, some changes are being made to the Russia-Ukraine peace plan. Secretary Marco Rubio saying that the meeting was incredibly productive. Watch this real quick.
We had a very good day today. I think we made a tremendous amount of progress. It is probably the most productive day we have had on this issue, maybe in the entirety of our engagement, but certainly in a very long time.
Ukraine was against it. Now they're saying, hey, it showed meaningful progress towards aligning positions. Here's my thing. If Trump can broker this peace deal, it lifts sanctions off Russia. You're talking changing the energy dynamic globally.
Yes, I mean, I think we're a little early. The jury's still out. I think Putin is already saying he doesn't like the deal now. So it's going to be a lot of sausage making to still be done. But yeah, if you bring Russia in too quickly into the global energy market, it could have some very negative consequences. So we have to be very judicious, and certainly nothing should be done to ease any pressure on Russia until reality is better on the ground in the front lines. I mean, right now, there's a missile barrage that's landing on Kyiv as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's not great. But you know what? Like this is the time when they both are going to posture up to try to get more ground for negotiating stuff like that. All right, Victoria, President Trump today signed an executive order directing the state and Treasury secretaries to begin designating certain Muslim Brotherhood chapters as foreign terrorist organizations and specifically designated global terrorists. Look, this is where ISIS with al-Baghdadi was a spinoff of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes, and Hamas is a spinoff of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yep.
The Muslim Brotherhood is the so-called political wing of Islam. They were the great friends of the Obama administration, who called them champions of women's rights, among other things. No, they are supporters of terrorist groups. And I've been working on this issue, Carl, I mean, not to date myself, but for 10 years when I was in Senator Cruz's office. He has led the charge on this from the Senate. The president was very interested in it in the first. The complicating factor is it's very difficult. You know, a lot of these groups care, for example, do masquerade as a civilian operation. And what you have to do is go through their financing, look at where this money is coming from. And if you are providing material support for a foreign terrorist organization, well, then you're in violation of U.S. law.
Yeah. And Brent, real quick, I got a minute left here. Trump talked to President Xi of China this morning, saying we discussed many topics, including Ukraine, Russia, fentanyl, soybeans, and other farm products. We've done very good, very important, great farmer deals. It'll only get better. He goes on to say that, you know, Xi has been invited to, Xi invited him to Beijing in April. What?
Well, again, before any visit like that, it should very, very closely monitor to ensure that the Chinese Communist Party is adhering to the promises that were made when Xi and Trump met in South Korea last month. And so if they actually are stopping the flow of fentanyl precursors, they actually are starting to tamp back their support to Russia's war in Ukraine, then there's ample reason to go and to try to further the relationship in an advantageous way for America in going to Beijing in April next year.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what Trump's play was when he was talking about Taiwan potentially reunifying with China. This is going to be an interesting one to follow. Brent, Victoria, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, before we go, pandering is a favorite activity of the left. Eric Swalwell is like on level 11 of this next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. Please make a great gift. It's Trump time.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue. Rose Sparks. Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
Here's something you don't see very often. Elves not working, and why not? I gave them the day off, thanks to WeatherTech. With so many gifts for everyone, they don't have to work as hard. There's laser-measured floor liners and cargo liner, plus the child car seat protector and cup phone to secure any phone while driving. Or get a gift card instantly at WT.com. I call winner.
Your parents have given you some amazing gifts, but what about the inherited ones? Celebrate them with Ancestry DNA, the simple test that shows your deep family roots from your mom's side and your dad's side, with some serious detail. Trace the journeys and history that shaped who you are today, and see the traits they passed down. Your connections to the past are all waiting. See just how gifted you are for only $29.
Hi folks, I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details. And make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
The sweet sound of Monday morning. Somehow you're both wired and wiped out at the same time. And that's your cortisol talking. Meet Super Calm from Nello, a mix you stir into water to help you reset, refocus, and actually finish that deep breath you've been trying to take all day. Formulated with simple ingredients like ashwagandha, L-theanine, magnesium glycinate, and vitamin D3, Super Calm helps you make the daily chaos a little easier. Super Calm from Nello.
Look, I got to hand it to the left. They are committed to diving even more into the shallow end of stupid. Here we go. This is some breaking news. He says, I'm ready to come back on active duty to defend Mark Kelly as an Army JAG. Eugene Vindman. Okay. All right, folks, so just so you know how the Uniform Code of Military Justice works, and I explained this a little bit earlier in the show, but more in depth, when you're an active duty military officer, when you retire, you can be recalled to duty at any point. If you're an enlisted guy, as long as you haven't served more than 8 years, you can also be recalled for service or stop loss or things like this. Look, this is the guy from the Trump-Ukraine call that led to the impeachment. This guy, you're going to have this guy represent you. I mean, Mark Kelly, you might as well just put the handcuffs on yourself. It'd be great. By the way, folks, in a court of law in the military, there's still different rules from a regular court of law. And let me tell you, Mark Kelly, if you find yourself there, you are up against a wall of problems. It's not going to be good for you, bro. And if you hire that guy, you might as well just grab a shovel. I mean, Schmidt, these people, they're just so arrogant.
The Vindman brothers. That's a pretty funny one.
I mean,
that one just popped up.
And the charismatic black and white photo.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Delusions of heroism. All right, Carl, good to see you.
Man, I'll see you
Thanks so
tomorrow.
much, buddy. All right.